Oh. Om Satchidananda Rupaya Vishwotpatyadi Hetave Tapatraya Vinashaya Shri Krishnaya Vayam Numaha. Janmadyasya yatonvayaditarataschaarteshvabhignaswarat Tene Brahmahradaya Adi Kavaye Muhyanti Yatsurayah Tejo Vari Mridam Yatha Vinimayo Yatra Trisargo Mrisha Dhamna Svena Sada Nirasta Kuhakam Satyam Param Dhimahi Dharma Projita Kaitavotra Paramo Nirmatsaranam Satam Vedyam Vastavamatra Vastu Shivadam Tapatrayonmulanam Srimad Bhagavate Mahamuni Krite Kim Vaparerishvaraha Sadyo Hridyavarudya Tetra Kritibihi Shushrushubistatkshanat. Hari Om and greetings from Niagara Falls. How many of you read the rad that I posted today? Okay, here it is. Happiness is the secret to all beauty. There is no beauty without happiness. I'll read it again. I want you to think, what kind of person would have written such a message? Happiness is the secret to all beauty. There is no beauty without happiness. Christian Dior. When you hear that name, Christian Dior, what do you think of? Beauty, correct? Perfume and jewelry and clothing. But I actually don't know even if this is a male or a female. He or she is focused on beauty. On happiness. I've read a lot of quotes from people who are in the fashion industry, like Coco Chanel and Marilyn Monroe, and their messages are not about beauty. Their messages are about happiness. And there's a subtle current that goes with that. Those who are beautiful, those who are involved with beauty, know that that's not enough. While in Bharat, while on our yatra, I had the grace of being with Puja Guruji, Swami Tejomayananda, for 2 weeks. And one of the strongest messages that I invoked over these 2 weeks was, some are fearful in this world. Some are fearless in this world. Both of them are the same. Those who are fearful and those who are fearless, the point is, this is still related to the world. This is still related to that which is relative. Like, if you're running away from a dog in a dream, or you're walking a dog in a dream, they're both the same when you wake up, correct? Whether you're running away or walking. And so what we should be doing is not even trying to be fearless in this world, which I feel most of us are doing, which I'm doing, but to transcend fear. And transcending fear is oneness. You are not fearless to yourself. Fear is irrelevant. Fear doesn't apply to yourself. Advaita. we are actually tuning into this message as we approach the second year of Vedanta and Bhagavatam, as we commence the second year, by feeling there is more to life than what we have lived so far. Do you all remember where you were on the brink of Y2K? Remember the day and the time and the place? I was in the middle of Spain at the time, and the whole world was going to end, and nothing changed. Do you know where you were at the brink of the last decade? As in 2009, then 2019. Do you feel that there's more than what you have lived? For those who are living for pleasure, now with a year, with a decade of experience, you know there's more. There's possession. Those who are living for possession, you know there's more. You're living for position. And I feel a lot of us, we already have position checked off. So what should we be living for? For peace, for God. Wherever you are in your evolution, our course is designed for us to look forward, look higher. Vedanta and Bhagavatam or Bhagavatam specifically, is a katha. What is the English word for katha? A story. Everyone loves and is engaged in stories. On our bus rides throughout Maharashtra, when I was sitting with our high school students, we were talking about stories like Lord of the Rings, like how Harry Potter is a copy of Lord of the Rings. Some were deeply offended by that, but I was standoffish in that. I never withdrew my comment. Stories. I had the chance to teach a Balivihar class at our camp in Vibhuti, and I began by telling them a story. How Bhagavatam, Ramayana, etc. came to find a strong place in people's lives. Everyone is engaged in karma or rituals. A vivaha is a ritual, an upanayana is a ritual. Back in the day, the rituals were much longer. And so, at the beginning of a ritual, someone would share the Ramayana, the Bhagavatam katha. While the ritual is going on, they knew that people would not be able to focus. So there would be breaks, just like a Bollywood movie, right? Who can sit through more than 3 hours of a movie? So what do they have? Intermission. Go to the restroom, eat something. And they also know that some people, even during the ritual, they're unable to tune in. So in separate parts of the building or that field, this katha would be going on. Now, how that relates to our lives. If you remember Ramayana, if you remember Bhagavatam at the beginning of your day, don't you find more meaning in what you're doing? When you're at work, when you're in school. Suppose in between, you're having lunch by yourself or lunch with God, correct? Then all of a sudden your afternoon becomes more energetic, more enthusiastic. To remember this katha, and we're doing this at the beginning of our decade, to make this whole decade more meaningful by engaging in this katha. Our scripture, just like a story, has characters. In a story, they're called characters. In a scripture, they're called role models. We've been exposed to and exploring all types of role models. And the most immediate role models is the great Grahastha, Shaunaka. And I've given him the adjective of Rishi Shaunaka. Most energetic, most enthusiastic. And during one of these karmas, he asks Rishi Ugrashavas many questions about life, but particularly about God. And Rishi Ugrashavas is known as Sutta. He goes on to share that such a dialogue happened back in the day between Raja Parikshita, who also is a great grahastha. And he asked this question to Rishi Shuka. Raja Parikshita is prosperous, Rishi Shuka is peaceful. In all of the characters or role models that we've been exposed to and explored, a key trait that every one of them has engaged in is they've moved on. From whatever way they've lived, they've evolved. They've looked up, they've looked inside. And I try to show this to all of you in language, such as, when you travel, what wish do you offer to people? You say, may you be safe. I hope you have safe travels, yes? Now, for most of us, our travels are given that they're safe. Other than if you're on a yatra, then it's not so guaranteed. That's why we have waivers. But typically, if you're flying to Cleveland, if you're flying to Detroit, right, it's going to be safe, especially on an American flight where security is so intense. So instead of wishing someone safety, may your travels be safe and sound. Sound in here, correct? That's moving on. How did you wish people on December 31st or January 1st? May you have a prosperous new year. May you have a prosperous new decade. Most of you, and today I think all of you, are Americans. Which American needs more prosperity? And if you're of Indian origin, you're the highest earning immigrant group in America. So what should the wish be? May you be prosperous and peaceful. One more example of this. I'm planning for Deepavali. And whenever I think of Deepavali, I think of this sticker that my mother has on her altar. And many of you have this sticker too. What does the sticker say? Shubha and Labha. And that sticker is just a cutout. But if it was really based on our feeling, what would it be? Labha and more Labha. Correct? Labha's done. Don't even wish for Labha. Wish for Shubha. Shubha is auspiciousness. Shubha is egolessness. Everyone's with me? See, if your language is like that, you'll think like that. I had a 17-hour flight from Mumbai to New York, and I just cocooned myself in the corner. No food, no drinking, because then you have to get up. So I was just in that corner, and I watched Gully Boy. Have any of you seen the movie Gully Boy before? So I happened to watch it, and what I appreciated most about, his name is Murad. Murad in Urdu means desire. What I appreciated most was how much of a beating he took from the world. From his father physically beating him, or the people who were well-to-do verbally beating him. But he always moved on. Moved on from his father's abuse, from societal abuse, and Gully Boy became popular. He opened up for Nas. Not that any of you know who Nas is, but that's a big deal. If you ask any youth or any young adult, they will know that that's a big deal. This is something I've been thinking about a lot when we have heated discussions with friends or with family. We never move on. The way the Guruji shared this, he goes, we tell people we forgive them, but we haven't forgotten what they did. Right? We just hold back. We don't move on. This is what we're learning in Srimad Bhagavata. To move on in an absolute sense, to move on in a relative sense. This is the game changer in our life. The catalyst, the inukshuk, the map, the sign. The author of Srimad Bhagavatam is Vedavyasa. Bhagavan Vedavyasa. And why did he document Srimad Bhagavatam? He had tuned into dharma, artha, kama, moksha, but he still felt there was more. And so he moved on even from moksha to bhakti. You're all hearing me clearly. Past moksha is bhakti. Past jnana is bhakti. And this is the Veda Vyasa, the foundation of Sanatana Dharma. Srimad Bhagavatam is 12 skandhas, 12 sections. The first, the focus is adhikari. Adhikari is who can actually appreciate bhakti, who can actually appreciate devotion, dedication. And that's you. We've been together for 3.5 years, 2.5 years of Ramayana, 1 year of Bhagavatam. We probably still have 30 years to go before we finish Bhagavatam. When I saw Vyasa yesterday, not the Ved Vyasa, my Vyasa. I have two. I have my the Vyasa and my the Vyasa. So I was sharing with him that we went to Sant Jnaneshwar's Mahasamadhi Mandir. This is in the middle of Maharashtra, in Alandi. And we were waiting in line, and people were chanting. They were so happy in this long line. And I was sharing with him that people were chanting, Mauli Tukaram. Mauli means mother. It's a really lovely word, so soft. And Tukaram, you hear this, you think of tuk. Like in Hindi, it's like an insult to someone. But Tukaram is a message that tu Ram. What does tu mean in Hindi? You. And who would call you tu? Someone who really doesn't like you or someone who really likes you? There's that familiarity, like some would say towards Bhagwan. So Tukaram means you are Ram. Now, it was so lovely. Vyasa was singing that as he was going to sleep. He was singing Mauli Tukaram, but he says it in such a Canadian accent, Tukaram. And I share this because you are Tukaram, you are the adhikari. That's why we're connecting right now. The second skandha is sadhana. You are Tukaram, but you have to work for it. You have to engage in sadhana. You have to unlearn. The third skandha is sarga, which is foundational creation. The fourth skandha is visarga, which is functional creation. And now we are on the fifth skandha, which is sthana. Now that the foundational and functional creation are in place, what happens? What do you do with this creation? So our Veda Vyasa has put together Srimad Bhagavatam, and what Guruji and I were discussing is Bhagavatam is the scripture that in scholarly circles decides who's a scholar and who's not. One's pandityam is determined by studying Bhagavatam. Not Brahma Sutras, not Upanishads, not Bhagavad Gita, not Ramayana, but Bhagavatam. And why I'm pointing this out to you is not in reference to me, but in reference to you, Tukaram. I'm going to start calling you Tukaram. You can call me Mauli, and we'll chant together like that. One of our evolving adults, she's a jeweler, and she was telling me that the typical engagement ring, the typical person spends $3,500 on an engagement ring. Typical person. Vivek is atypical. He spent $0 on an engagement ring. She said in her business, the typical engagement ring is $10,000. Now tell me, what is the difference between a $3,500 engagement ring and a $10,000 engagement ring? Love, right? $10,000 is, you can buy more love then. It is rarity. There is more rare substances in that $10,000 ring. Yes? More diamonds, less gold. More gold, less silver. To be able to be exposed and to explore Bhagavatam is rare. Hence why Pandityam is determined by studying Bhagavatam and for us to feel the value of what we're doing. Srimad Bhagavatam is a lovely map of avatars. How many avatars are there? Some lesser thinkers think it's just Bhagavan Krishna, correct? Those who think more, it's Bhagavan Krishna and Bhagavan Rama. Those who engage in Bharatanatyam, how many are there? 10. For us, we're referencing 24. That's 23 plus the original incarnation of infinity, which is Lord Narayana. But the truthful answer, how many avatars are there? 0. How? How can there be 0? If you study the word avatara literally, it means to descend. So God is in heaven, and by implication, we're in hell then, correct? So God comes from heaven to hell to lift us up to heaven. But I told all of you distinctly when Bhagavan Rama was born that he wasn't born from a womb like I was. He wasn't born, he manifested. He manifested, he was present. And he was present when Raja Dasharatha and Mother Kaushalya and all of Ayodhya and all of creation became quiet. That's when Bhagavan Rama's as if crying was heard, manifested. This relates to us. Grace is ever present, ever potent, ever powerful, ever peaceful. Grace is when one becomes quiet, they feel guided by that grace. When we become quieter, we feel that manifestation of God, of peace inside of ourselves. That's why I'm sharing there's no avatars. There's only divinity that's as if covered. And by exploring manifestations like Bhagavan Krishna and Bhagavan Rama, all we're doing is uncovering this ignorance and feeling that divinity within ourselves. Okay? Everyone's understood Avatara more. To be quiet. Sheila and I went out for dinner last night, and I had this idea over dinner that we're working with. I don't know, I want to create a program or a class or an app called The Quiet Mind. You've all heard of TQM before. TQM is this corporate acronym that I actually can't remember what it is right now. Total Quality Management, something like that. And I want to do something about TQM where people feel that guidance from themselves. We're so dependent on external guidance. But external guidance comes and goes. People misinterpret that. Can you become quiet enough to be able to guide yourself? So if you have any ideas about TQM, share them with me. We'll do this together. So I shared thoughts about life and Bhagavatam and the skandhas, and now particularly the 5th skandha. We have been introduced and we've actually said farewell to Bhagavan Rishabha, the role model for people who are married, a role model for those who have renounced. And the son of Bhagavan Rishabha is Bharata. And Bharata was also Rishabha. He was the greatest, which is why where we live is known as Bharata. Now Bharata, even though so great, became forgetful. And his forgetfulness of his greatness, of his nature, he started remembering a deer. And the last thought you have before you go to sleep, first thought you have in the morning, the last thought you have before this body dies will be the first thought you have in your next body, his body died, and he became that deer. As a deer, as an actual deer, an animal, he was quiet. So he felt that guidance within himself, which is really the grace of Bhagwan, that as a deer, he went solo, free solo, independently, and stayed connected to remembering Bhagwan. And so when the body of the deer died, he was born again. And that's where we are with Srimad Bhagavatam. We continue. As I mentioned, we're on the 5th skanda. We are on the 11th adhyaya, chapter 11, the 4th shloka, and I'm just going to read the first line. 5:11:4:1. Yavan mano rajasa purushasya satvena va tamasa vanuruddham. The literal meaning of this, that person who is controlled by rajas, sattva, and tamas, that person's mind will always be uncontrollable. The one who's controlled by these expressions of Maya, by this ignorance, that person's mind will never be quiet. So where is this coming from? This is Bharata sharing with a Raja. So some details relating to this. When the deer's body had died, then Bharata was born again, and he was born again remembering his nature as peace. So what is shared is he had an allergy to his relatives. As I read this morning, I was telling Sheila, I was like, I think I have the same allergy. That he was allergic to the people in his family, you know, all of those typical emotions and celebrations. He had an allergy to that. And how this allergy manifested is he acted like he was drunk. He acted like he was lost. He acted like he was blind and he was deaf. And I keep saying acted. That's a really intense act to put on. To act like you're drunk. People are actually drunk, but eventually they sober up. To act like you're lost, that's pretty relative. That's easy for us. But then to act like one's blind and deaf, he did all of this. Now, when you interact with someone who's drunk, suppose someone on a subway car or a party, do you go closer to them or farther from them? If you're trying to find your way, do you follow those who are lost? That's why he didn't even have a name when he was born. People simply called him Jada Bharata. His name is not Jada. Jada means inert. Jada means dead. That wasn't his name. He was so unimportant to people that they didn't even give him a name. Like here at Chinmaya Dhara, I have in front of me 50 seats. I haven't named, that's Priya, that's Josephine, that's Mary. They're just chairs. But Bhagwan has a name. Bhagavati has a name. Jada Bharata, I'll refer to him as Jada Bharata. He was believed to be all of the things I just described. So people started giving him menial work. Move this, bury this, dig this. And as pay for this menial work, they would give him all sorts of food that they didn't want. Like rotten dal, that's one of the things that are shared. The rice was powdered, so powdered that there was no solids. And what Jada Bharata felt, he felt like he was doing no work. He felt like he was being given Amrita as a reward for doing no work. Now there's an awesome message there. At the end of your workday, tomorrow, correct? You'll go back to work. Do you have that feeling that, who did the work today? that no work got, that you never felt like you did anything. Conversely, we feel like we should be the CEO of the company. We do all of the work. She or he gets paid. And then food that comes to you. Do you feel like everything that comes to you is amrita? Even if amrita came to us with hot sauce, it's not hot enough. He was so unimportant to people. In his lifetime, there was a really vulgar, base personality. And this personality didn't have a kid. So he thought to himself, if he kills someone, he'll have a kid. Think of that tamasic logic. If I sacrifice a human, I'll get a human. So they were looking for, who can we sacrifice? There's Jarabharata, right? He's so unimportant. Let's sacrifice him. So they tied him up and they had this sword and they were about to behead him. And all of that blood was going to be offered to Bhadrakali. And as they were about to kill Jarabharata, that icon of Bhadrakali, she's in this clay form, that icon started melting and the actual factual Bhadrakali emerged. Devi was there. And she started laughing and she freed Jarabharata. And instead, all of the people who were going to sacrifice him, they were sacrificed. It was such a amazing details that are shared about that. And so much of the destruction that took place was by her chakra. Now I'll share some insights into this. You know what the chakra is that Bhagavan Vishnu or Bhagavan Krishna holds for us? What for us is perpetually spinning? Your head, yes, that is correct. You in class, who's Rishi Shaunaka? Who is this Shuka that you're referring to? Bhagavatam? I thought we were still studying Ramayana. It is time. Isn't that cool? A clock is always spinning, right? We think of a chakra moving very fast, and it does, but doesn't time move fast? Where did 2009 go? Where did 1999 go? So the implication for us is that when we live a tamasic life, like this one personality, that time will take us. And one more insight here. How many of you have studied Tattva Bodha before? Okay. One of the last sections of Tattva Bodha shares what happens to the karmas, the karma palas of an enlightened person. Tattva Bodha ends with enlightenment. And it says people who love that enlightened person, those palas go to her or him. And those who are mean and hate that enlightened being, the palas, the negative palas, go to them. Now, Jarabharata is enlightened, correct? And people are being mean and trying to hate Jarabharata. So where do the palas go? Back to those people. That's why it's very, very, very important that you feel everyone you interact with is enlightened. You never know, Jarabharata, they thought he was drunk. No, I'm not saying go out of your way and think that every drunk person's enlightened. They probably are drunk. But your default should to respect rather than suspect. One last detail about the kata of Jarabharata, then we'll get into some simple teachings. After Jarabharata was freed from that sacrifice, there was a king that was being taken to Rishi Kapila, and his name is Rahugana. Rahugana. And Rahugana was being carried in a palki. What is the English word for palki? Palanquin. That's a strange word which we never use, but whatever. He was being carried in this palki. So one of the areas they had to go was uphill, so they needed more strength. And Jarabharata was young and strong. So they found him just sitting there. They said, you come help us too. So he was so free. He said, sure, why not? It's not like he felt like he was doing work. So he's carrying this palanquin, but he would only look 3 feet in front of him. It's described as the length of an arrow. And as he's focusing on these 3 feet in detail, he would avoid stepping on creatures, ants, worms, anything like that. So as he's doing this, he's jumping around. Imagine I shared with all of you, walk, not that we see ants and worms, but don't step on bacteria, right? You'd have to keep on jumping so that you're just really not on the ground. So now imagine being in that palanquin. Have you ever been in a palki before? Our Devis, you never got carried in a palki. Devas. That's your raw. Carry your Devi in a palki. We carried Sheila, and I didn't, but others carried Sheila in a palki when she left Chinmaya. So imagine how uncomfortable that would be. It'd be like driving a car with 3 regular tires and 1 spare tire, right? It's kind of warped into that side. So this Rahugana got angry, and he starts making sarcastic remarks towards Jadabharata, saying, you're so weak. Even though he's so strong, you're so weak, that's why you can't carry this. You're so smart, that's why you don't know where to go. Being very sarcastic. And then Jadabharata, he's not rattled by this, but he simply replies to Rahugana. And this is his reply. That Rahugana calls him Jivan Mrita. I want you to remember that term. What does Jivan mean? Living. Mrita, dead. He feels that Jadabharata's Jivan Mrita, that he's alive, but he's acting like he's dead. That's what a zombie is, right? The walking dead. See, there's a Sanskrit term for that too. The most popular show on TMC, the American Theater Company, or whatever that station is sourced from Sanskrit. And Jadabharata says, actually, all is Jivan Mrita. All is as though living, but is dead. And he specifically references, he says all that is in effect has a beginning. Do you all logically agree? Anything that is in effect has a beginning, yes or no? Point to me what's in effect in the room that you're in. Your thermostat is in effect, right? The carpet you're sitting on is in effect. The clothes you're wearing is in effect. The body you're wearing is in effect. It all has a beginning, right? Your beginning was in 1977 or 1952. And all that has a beginning has a end. So isn't everything that we're interacting with as if living, but actually dead? In his sarcasm, Rahugana says, you're the master and I'm the servant. And Jadabharata replies saying, actually, who can be a master and servant when there's only oneness? Correct? Only in Dvaita can there be a hierarchy. In oneness can there be a hierarchy. Are you your own supervisor? Are you your own subordinate? There's just you. And he shares, with time, the master becomes the servant and the servant becomes the master. How many of you have experienced in your life someone that you felt you could never be friends with is now your friend? Maybe your spouse now. Yes. People who are leaders of your community, who felt like they run your community, now they're forgotten, no? And this is where Swami Tejamananda shared with me many times. He never excessively praises anyone or criticizes anyone, because you never know that tomorrow the roles will reverse. To be balanced with people. And one more thought from this dialogue. Jadabharata tells Rahugana, he's being sarcastic, he says, you feel that you can change me, but can you change me? Now think about how that relates to us. You feel like you can change the people around you, yes? I feel like I can change you, but does it work? What Swami Tejamananda shared, he said, and now he's turning 70 this year. He said, what I've learned in 70 years is that no one listens to no one. No one listens to anyone. And that's such a powerful statement because he's been doing this for let's say 70 years and is realizing that no one listens to anyone. So even if I'm being sattvic and pleasant with you, I shouldn't feel that you're going to reciprocate that. But we all have that expectation. And it shows how illogical we are. We all like to study the logic of scriptures, but if you don't practice it in your functional life, it's just a game that you're playing with scriptures. I understand this logic, but having expectations is illogical. Yes? When this reply comes back to Rahugana, then Rahugana comes out of that palki and prostrates to Jadabharata and says, who are you? I love this sattvic drama. Who are you? When people go to Sri Ramana, who are you? It's so anti-small talk. How much money do you make? What company do you work for? Where were you born? It's really, who are you? And he says, are you Rishi Kapila? I'm going to see him. Have you come to see me? And I love that statement because really that's what the guru does, isn't it? Once you're open enough to seek your guru, you don't have to go anywhere. The guru will come to you. That's the case for all of us. Now, this line that I referenced, this is Jadabharata telling Rahugana, you don't know me, as in you don't know the spirit because of your mind. And that's so applicable to all of us. And now later on, as in next week, we'll study. So what are we supposed to do with our mind? And here's the hint for you. One has to use their mind to serve Bhagwan. And the most direct expression of Bhagwan is Bhagwan's teachers, as in those who teach on behalf of Bhagwan. That is a way to be freed of our gunas, to be freed of our mind. Oh.